right. I want to welcome everyone to the Virtual College Exploration for Illinois Students, sponsored by the Illinois Association for College Admissions Counseling and StriveScan. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of the many different sessions happening. So be sure to check out the full schedule at IACAC.org. The presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at that same website, IACAC.org. So I'd like to turn things over to our presenters.
Thank you so much. I am going to screen share my presentation now. Just a moment. Okay. And get my slides going. Great. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our information session on London Metropolitan University. My name is Megan Gotting, and I am one of two representatives for London Met, as we call it for short, in the United States. So I actually work specifically with applicants from the US who are interested in studying with us over in London in the United Kingdom. And so I'm going to do an overview tonight on our university, the programs we offer, how you apply, but I'm also going to give you some background on the pros to studying internationally. A lot of students applying from the United States don't really think about doing college overseas, and there's some really great benefits that we will discuss here. So again, my name is Megan. I am based on the East Coast in Greater New York area in Connecticut, and I mostly actually work with applicants from the eastern part of the United States. My partner is named Jadon, and he is based in Los Angeles, and he actually works with students from the West and the Midwest. And he actually is joining us tonight, but he's just started recently in the role, so I'm going to do the presentation tonight, and then he is going to join us on the Q&A later. And if you decided you were interested in applying, Jadon would actually be your first port of contact who would help you with the entire application process, understanding how to get your visa from within the United States. So Jadon, if you want to turn on your mic and say hello, since students will be working with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Megan. Again, my name is Jadon Joyner, and I'm originally from the East Coast, but a lot of my family is actually based in the Midwest. So I lived in Gary, Indiana. I actually lived in Champaign, Illinois. So kind of working with students from the Midwest is going to be something that I think I'll be able to help with. And so, as Megan mentioned, I will be your first point of contact in everything London Metropolitan, and I'll really be there to help you along the process in anything that you all need. And so if you all have any questions, feel free to email either of us. And I'm going to go on and let Megan get started with this, and it's going to be really exciting. I hope you all choose London and London Met.
Thank you, Jadon. And yeah, so both of our email addresses are here, but if you forget to jot it down, basically, if you just email international@londonmet.ac.uk, that's a shared inbox that would come to both of us, and we will get back in touch with you. But, you know, in this time, we're not all traveling. A lot of recruitment representatives for universities are usually going out to college fairs in person, as you know, and we're doing this in the virtual space right now. So right now we're online, but Jadon would be the one traveling to Illinois for future fairs or events or conferences, school visits. So again, hopefully maybe in 2021, if he's back on the road, and he'll be in Illinois and get to meet some of you in person, particularly if you're looking to apply to the 2022 academic year. But let's get going with the presentation. So London Met, as an overview, we are located in central London in the United Kingdom, and we have two campuses in London. One is at Holloway Road in North London, and one is at Aldgate in East London, but they're both very central to kind of the sights and sounds and things that you think of when you think of going to London, perhaps on a trip or as a tourist. You can really access all of them within 15 minutes on the tube, which is the underground metro, from either of our campuses. But at the same time, you really have the real London experience in the tube stations and the neighborhoods that we're located in, because they're just a little bit off the beaten path of the kind of the tourist realm in the center of the city. So it's kind of best of both worlds. We have 10,000 students on our campus representing 147 nationalities. So we're really proud that our student body, staff, and faculty represents the entire global community. In terms of the 10,000 students breaking down between postgraduate and undergraduate students, the majority, about 75% of our students, are undergraduate students doing bachelor's degrees. And then the rest of the students are master's students or doing research or PhD programs. This photo here is an image of some of our student ambassadors on campus, and that is a job that a lot of international students love to do as a campus job. You can work part-time as an international student in the UK, and this is a fun way of being involved, giving campus tours, helping out with welcome and open days. And so this is a nice way to make friends and expand your social circle kind of from all over the world. So in terms of our campus makeup, we are one of the most diverse campuses in all of the UK. Over 65% of our students come from a minority or underrepresented background. Again, we said we have students from 147 different countries. We have mature students. We have students straight out of high school. So really the age spectrum ranges a lot. Something that we have for American students, as well as we have a lot of US veterans who are interested in our programs, and they can use educational benefits for that. So last academic year, we had 65 students from the United States doing full degrees with us at London Met. And I'm hoping this year we're going to see about double, and maybe even more in the next year, because Jadon and I are focused on recruiting students from the United States to go have this experience in London. And that's just been a focus within the last year. So we're working on an ambassador and an alumni network and really building out kind of the USA community over across the pond at London Met. One of our alumni that we're really proud of is the actual current mayor of London, named Sadiq Khan. And so here's a quote from him, just speaking about London as a city for students to consider in general for coming to not just London Met, but it's a city full of universities. And so it's normally ranked #1 city in the world to study. You can see in the QS rankings from last year, it was something you can Google and get excited about all the opportunities for international students in the city of London. And I myself studied in London and then ended up living there for about 7 years. And that's why I do what I do, because I love advising applicants from the United States on the experience of getting to go over to the UK. And really, you know, London is a British city, but it's really an international city. So you truly get to experience the world there, and opens up your eyes to so many perspectives, new opportunities, and new friendships. And so that's why I do what I do back here in the US. I did the post-study work visa, which is something offered in the United Kingdom that I will speak about later. But again, Jadon also has had experience living and working overseas. And so that's why we both are really passionate about working with applicants from the US who are interested in having that longer term experience. We also, just to clarify, when I'm saying from the United States, that doesn't mean you need to be a US citizen to work with us. We work with students from all different nationalities. We just tend to work with students who are geographically based in the US right now. So get in touch with us no matter where you come from. We work on the international team at London Met. So we also have colleagues who work with students from South America, Central America, the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, Australia, New Zealand. So please, if you happen to be know someone or be from somewhere else, you can still get in touch with us. But we realize tonight's focus is students from Illinois. So you're likely all applying from within the United States, and we would be your contacts. So before I launch into our 2 campuses and the degrees that we offer at London Met, I like to do an overview on why US students should consider doing their bachelor's degree in the UK, just in general. So something that a lot of American students are unaware of is that bachelor's degrees overseas are often 3 years rather than 4 years. So you can get your degree done in 1 year quicker than you would if you were studying at a US university. Master's degrees are 1-year programs with us rather than 2 years. So in theory, you could study for 4 years and have a master's degree, whereas some of your high school friends back in the States might take them 6 years to get a master's degree. Also, I think a lot of American students automatically think overseas, abroad, that's going to mean more expensive. But actually, studying at an international university can often be more affordable than a lot of the out-of-state and private options within the United States. So in-state options and community college options can be a really good option for US students in terms of affordability, but often going across state lines or going private in the US is incredibly expensive. And so when we hear about the student debt crisis that's developed, it's really an American problem rather than a global problem. And so this is a new kind of perspective that a lot of US students are taking. It's becoming more and more popular to look at international universities. And you can see here, for instance, our tuition and fees for this upcoming academic year are about 12 to 14,000 Great British pounds, which translates to approximately 16 to 18,000 US dollars. So that would be your full degree program. Then you do need to factor in for international universities, your accommodation, your flights back and forth from the United States, and your living costs, your bills, your transit, your groceries. So I always tell US students that realistically they should budget about $35,000 for the year for their entire life and experience, and that includes the degree. So that's just to give you a ballpark, but it will range student to student based on your lifestyle and the accommodation option that you choose. We do offer international student scholarships. So if you're applying from the United States, you would be considered an international student, and that opens up some neat opportunities. And also, a lot of American applicants are not aware that you can apply through FAFSA for US student loans. So you can still do the financial aid process even if you're going outside the United States. A lot of international universities do accept this, and London Met is one of them. So Jadon and I work with applicants from point of being even interested in hearing about our programs till you get on the airplane to go over. So we can help work with you on the US financial aid process. Or like I said, if you are a veteran, we can work with you on education benefits. And if you're a student in the United States who is coming straight out of high school, you're probably applying traditionally to our bachelor's program for the full extent of it. But if you're a student who is already in university or taking community college credits, sometimes you can apply for transfer or advanced entry into our year 2, and we can also work with you on that. Some other pros to applying in the UK is that often the admissions is rolling and there's no application fee, and that is true of London Met. If you apply to us directly through our website, there is no application fee at all. We also have start dates in both September and January. So some students who graduate and want to take a little time off to just kind of get organized work tend to choose our January start date. That is also an option. So we have a bigger intake that starts in the fall in September, but we will have quite a lot of students starting in January. Sorry, my slide skipped ahead there. So again, 2 options for you in terms of timeline. The academic year starts a little bit later in the UK than in the United States. So you're usually heading over in about mid-September to late September, and classes begin in late September, early October. So you might be a little bit behind in terms of your peers back in United States campuses might be starting in August. So that's just something to keep in mind. Some other pros are that you get the international work experience. You are able to work part-time during your time as a student in the UK on what's called a Tier 4 student visa. You can work 20 hours a week during course time, and during the break period, you're able to work full-time. And if you get your degree in the UK, whether that be a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, currently the government has what they call the post-study work visa or the graduate route scheme that you can apply to have a 2-year work visa after you've completed your degree. And that's a really neat benefit for international students who are considering the UK. And I think I always like to say, you know, culturally, it's not as popular right now for American high school students to consider the option of doing a bachelor's degree overseas. The popular model still in the United States is going to a US institution and doing a short-term study abroad semester. And that's a fantastic thing to do. I've worked in US study abroad for many years, and I think that getting to go abroad for a semester is incredible if that's the option that you end up doing. A London Met actually accepts American students to come over on short-term study abroad programs, and then the credits transfer back to US universities. So you could always touch base with us on that if you're interested in London Met but didn't want to make the commitment to a full bachelor's degree. But Jadon and I love making students aware of this other option, which is you can actually go reside there and live there for multiple years and really dig into the culture and really become a Londoner. And it's hard to have that experience in just, 2 to 4 months that you have in a short-term study abroad experience. So this is becoming a little bit more culturally common for Americans to consider full degrees abroad, but it's still not, common amongst everybody's peers at school. So, it may be outside the box, but it's a really neat and really viable option for you. And if you're feeling a bit nervous about being away from home for so long, know that there is really long breaks. So you really can come home for a big chunk of time in the summer, get a summer job like your friends at home if you'd like to, or come home over the holiday period. But you would have a resident permit in the UK. So if you didn't want to come home at all, you could stay and be living there full time as well. So that would be up to you. So I say, if you are considering college options where you want to go somewhere that's drivable to home so that you can, visit home on the weekends often, going internationally is going to be difficult, obviously. But if you were going to consider going a pretty lengthy, distance that was going to be a longer drive or even a flight within the United States, it actually is not too different to go internationally, because once you're on campus, you're really caught up in your academic schedule for term time, and you're busy and you can connect with family and friends back home on WhatsApp and all the different technologies we have now. So it's not as intimidating as it sounds, actually, and really this enriching experience. In terms of support, just know that London Met offers loads of pre-departure support, and that comes through myself and Jadon. We will work with you from literally step one to getting on the airplane and handing you over to our team who is in London, and they will be hosting you for orientation and making sure everything is in order. So that's could be financial aid, the visa process, pre-departure webinars to talk about what to pack and how to prepare, how to use the healthcare system there. All of those steps we can answer. And so you can feel like you have an extra layer of support before you go over. Then when you actually arrive in the UK, we've got all sorts of services and fun events and programming for international students specifically, including extra orientations. You get to meet your classmates who then are from every different country, but you might be, in theory, the ambassador from the United States. So we would have connected the US students in advance, but you're going to then end up being in orientation and social activities and meet and greets with students from all over the world. And there's our student union, which will come in and talk to you about all the clubs and societies and organizations and sports teams, radio station, newspaper, all of the kind of activities and organizations you would think to get involved with maybe on a US campus. You can do this on international campuses as well. And so you would have all those opportunities presented to you. Freshers Week is our is kind of welcome week in the UK. That's kind of a mixture of social programming and activities, and also student groups coming in and presenting to students how they can get involved on campus. So I just want to check how we're doing on time here. Okay. And then in terms of support services, we've got all the resources and offices on campus to make sure that you succeed as a student when you're enrolled and you're actively taking classes. And that's from academic advising to a US financial aid person on campus who helps with the disbursements, to disability support, careers and internships placement office, helping you navigate opening a bank account in the UK, understanding we have a visa compliance team that can help you with navigating questions you have on your visa whilst living in the UK. So there's loads of support services beforehand and when you get to campus. So now we're going to launch a bit into London Met itself and what we have to offer. This is an aerial view from our Holloway Road campus. And I always lived up in this area in North London during my 7 years there. So I'm very partial to this neighborhood. If you look in the forefront of the photo, you see a white clock tower. That is part of one of our campus buildings. That's really beautiful. I love there's a beautiful hall inside there that a lot of ceremonies are done on campus that I will show you an image in the next slide. But you can see all the way down to the Thames River in this photo, and it's kind of the skyline of London. So you would go from the west, you might think of Westminster Abbey and Big Ben and the London Eye, the big kind of Ferris wheel, and keep heading east, you would pass Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, and you get up to the Tower of London and the Tower Bridge. And so it's just such an exciting place to be as a student, and you get really familiar with the public transit network. using the tube, which is the metro system. It's really easy to navigate. It's color coded. You get to be a pro at the double-decker red buses. These were all things I was unfamiliar with before I moved to London, and I really conquered it, and it really helped my self-confidence and problem solving, and was actually a really neat challenge as a student. So again, I said we love that our campuses are really near kind of the heart of touristy London, but they're in real neighborhoods. So our campus at Holloway Road, this is our campus that specializes in business. So a lot of students who are interested in international business, marketing, journalism. We've got travel and tourism programs. This campus also has a lot of IT programs, computer science, cybersecurity, robotics, a lot of programs in the human sciences. So chemistry, biology, pharmaceuticals, sports and exercise science. And we actually have what we call London Met Super Lab, which is one of the largest teaching facilities in all of Europe. So you can see that image on the left in the center there, and that is our Super Lab, which is something we're really proud of. And we also have a lot of programs in the social sciences on this campus. So students who are interested in criminology, psychology, international relations is quite popular among American students. These would all be based on this campus. We also have some neat programs that fuse some of our creative programs that are on the other campus with this one. For instance, fashion photography and fashion marketing, or we have music production and technology. So some of the kind of fusion of right and left brain you can find at London Met as well. And this campus also has library facilities. It has a gym that you would have membership to as a student. And we have our student union based here, which is where you would get involved with all the clubs and organizations, sports teams that I was speaking about earlier. And we have loads of student activities to get involved with. But if you found that there was a team or an interest that you had that doesn't exist, you could start it, which is really cool too. Oh, also another thing about our Holloway Road campus is it's located next to Emirates Stadium, which is the home of Arsenal Football Club. So if anybody is a Premier League soccer fan, on game day, it's a really, really cool atmosphere. Everybody comes out of the tube with scarves on and doing their team chants, and that's kind of a neat place to be having class that day. And we're also located about a 5-minute tube ride from King's Cross Station. A lot of students know King's Cross from Harry Potter and platform 9 3/4 because it's where you take the train up to Hogwarts. But in practicality, also from that station, it is attached to St. Pancras International Station, and that is where you take the Eurostar train to mainland Europe. So it goes across the water to mainland Europe. You can get to Paris or Brussels, Belgium by train. You don't even have to get on a plane. So that's kind of a neat thing about our campus up at Holloway Road that a lot of students take advantage of. Then our other campus at Aldgate is located down kind of a side street with cobblestones, which is very London, and it's our creative arts campus. So our campus in Aldgate is our School of Art, Architecture, and Design. Students here are studying the fine arts, photography, fashion textiles. They're doing jewelry making, theater, film, television production, creative writing in English. And we also have a lot of interior design, exterior design and architecture, furniture and product design. So there's a lot of options, and Jadon and I can give you a full rundown of our majors, or as they would call them, courses. They don't actually use the terminology major, but we're happy to send you a full list so you can really see all of our offerings. Some of them are kind of fused between one campus or the other. So it really depends on the field of study you're looking at, but as a London Met student, you can use both campuses, and that's a really nice perk because you get the facilities in two places that are really close together, but very different neighborhoods. From this Aldgate campus here, you can actually walk up to the Thames River and to the Tower of London and the Tower Bridge, which is that big blue, beautiful bridge that you might have seen in postcards. It's also a neighborhood that's really rich in immigration history, so there's fantastic food joints and places that you can explore there. There's a lot of, right now, a lot of pop-up kind of street art and markets. And it's also the place where you find all of the Jack the Ripper walking tours. So you always see that happening when you're over in this part of town. Again, I'm just gonna buzz through a few photos of campus. That is our Science Center. Here is our learning center. So a lot of students, I think, automatically assume that London, Europe means old world. Everything's very ancient, and that is true. And that's kind of a neat thing about being in London. You've got all these old buildings and cobblestone streets, but actually a lot of them have been gutted on the interior. And so it's a very modern city as well. So you'll find a lot of the facilities at London Met and elsewhere are actually really modern. So you'll see here, obviously, this is fully furnished in more modern European kind of design and style. Here's some of our classrooms on the Holloway Road campus, and you can see they've been recently renovated to be very high tech. We've got great facilities for our media students. Digital media and computing's a very big area for us in journalism. So we've got a newsroom, radio station, TV studios. This is more of our craftsman space. So on our arts campus at Aldgate, there's a lot of great studio space for our students who are studying anything in the fine arts and architecture and furniture and jewelry making. I love when I go over and visit a few times a year, getting to see the student displays. They're so creative, and seeing the work that they put up in the different studio space to showcase their work for the year is really cool. So as a student, you can always go see what your peers are up to over at Aldgate campus. Here's some of our kind of cafes, bars, and chill out zones on the different campuses where you can get food and coffee and hang out between classes. You can see there's a pub on campus, which is a bit of a cultural difference between the United States and the UK, is that a lot of universities have a pub right on campus where there would be subsidized drinks and food. So it's a place where you can go get a discount meal with your fellow classmates. We have a really great courtyard space where you can eat outside on a nice day when it's not a gloomy gray London day, but you can still eat outside on a gloomy gray London day. On our Holloway Road campus in the bottom right. Here again is our gym that you would have membership to as a student. So in terms of applying, again, we've got a start date in September, and in late January. Classes actually this year beginning the first week of February. So if you're interested in applying for either of those, or you're looking ahead to 2022, just get in touch with myself and Jadon and we can help you through. But the two options right now are applying directly through our website, and that's got no application fee, and that is rolling admissions. So there's no application deadline, but the sooner you apply, the sooner you can apply for international student scholarships and really get settled on your plans. And the second option is applying through something called UCAS, which you see down there, UCAS, and it's similar to the US Common App, where you can apply to up to 5 universities or 5 programs within the UK. And that is a shared application, so you just upload everything to one portal. And the deadline for that is a hard deadline in mid-January. So just get in touch with us and talk to us about whether you would want to apply directly or you're looking to apply to multiple places, and we can give you information on either process. Oh, I did have a little note here on COVID-19. A lot of students have asked and are curious. This term, we have actually decided, we pushed the term start date back by 2 weeks. So our students just started classes this week, and students had the option of starting over in London or starting remote from the United States. So we do have quite a lot of American students who flew over. They did have to quarantine for 2 weeks, so it's been an interesting virtual enrollment, but we've done some fun connecting on Zoom and orientation, and now full residents over there in the UK. And then other students opted to take their classes virtually, and they're going to move over in January as the current plan. So it's been a flexible year for all universities around the world, having to kind of make adaptations and plans. But just know that studying internationally is still very much an option. And, you know, we can work with you on this. I understand it's a nerve-wracking time and an unsure time for everyone, but students have gone over and are going over to the UK, and then obviously abiding by the local standards there. Because going to an international university is not the same as going on a quick trip. Obviously, tourism's not so open right now, but you know, if you're going over, you're going to have a resident permit on a student visa and be really settling in there for the long term. So again, this is something we could help talk you through more, but you're welcome to reach out to Jadon or myself about that. Lastly, I know we're running into time here, but we've got a little bit of time before we'll get into Q&A. You might want to start typing any questions you have into the chat box so that Jadon and I can answer those. But a lot of students want to know about accommodation. Obviously, it's a big part of your life when you're a student. So our students get to basically choose whatever housing they would like to have in the city. Some of our students choose to find their own flats and do an independent flat share. I find that's more popular among graduate students, but most of our undergraduate students really like living in the student halls of residence in London. We actually share them with a lot of other London universities, and they're managed by third-party operators. So your roommates could be at London Met, or they might be at other London universities, and that expands your social circle a bit more. But something that students really like about the setup of most of these halls is that you have your own private bedroom most of the time. So you can just shut the door and have your own space. And then it's normally like a shared kitchen, bathroom, living room space, but at least you have your own bedroom to kind of have your privacy in that way. So again, accommodation is something that is sort of a very late step in the game after you've applied and have gone through a lot of other steps. Jadon and I can work with you on the different options that are available for your London living setup. Again, I was a student in London. I think it's the best city to be a student in the world. I mean, there's just no end to the opportunities there. There's so many free museums. There's so many discounts for students everywhere. I went to the theater a lot because I'm a big theater fan, and you can go to West End shows, which is like the equivalent of Broadway, and you get such subsidized rates for students there. There's pop-up festivals, music. Really, there's just so much for you to do, explore the parks. But right now, obviously, everyone is operating differently during COVID-19. So some of these things are not open right now. But if you're projecting ahead to study with us in the future, we're hopeful that London will be back to life as normal. And until then, we'll all keep kind of rolling with the punches through this unique time. And then just being in London in general, you can see London is located in southeast Eastern England, but you really have access by train all around England itself. You can take the train west out to Wales, you can take the train north up to Scotland, or you can take it east across the Channel to mainland Europe. There's also 5 airports in London, and so you can get all around. You can get out to Ireland or get over to Europe very easily. It really opens up your access to all of these places, and often on quite a shoestring budget. And so students really take advantage of that while they're studying over in the UK. And for me, like I said, it just really gave me so many more perspectives. And coming back to the United States, I feel really lucky that I got that experience to be a long-term international student. If you want to see our campus in 90 seconds, this is my favorite video. If you just Google London Met, do something you love. This is great student-led video that shows both of our campuses. It even shows a student going through the tube station that you would get off at Holloway Road to be going for class, and you can kind of visualize yourself there. So I really recommend just taking 90 seconds to watch this video. Also, Jadon and I run a Facebook and Instagram page for US applicants specifically. And so we'll put out there, like when we're doing something like this for students in Illinois, or if we're going to be in Chicago for a college fair next year. So if you want to follow us, you can follow us at London Met Uni USA. So we're the USA tag. Again, I can, if you get in touch with us, we can send you links to this, but that's on Facebook and Instagram. So again, here is our contact details. And now I'm going to just open it up to any questions that you guys want to type into the Q&A box. I don't think there's any thus far, but don't be shy. We've got a little bit of time here. Let's see, we've got about 10 minutes for questions. Again, you can also email that international@londonmet.ac.uk if you are interested in getting in touch with us and haven't jotted down our email addresses. That's okay, it will get to both of us. So does anyone have questions? Okay, great. Okay, so somebody asked about housing and accommodation. So no, that is not included in the tuition price, and that's going to be something when you're looking at international universities. Normally the fees listed are the academic tuition and fees. So like I said, our London Met tuition and fees for this coming academic year, depending on which degree program, is ranging from about $16,000 to $18,000 US for the entire year. And that's the fee for all international students. But then housing and accommodation is on top of that, and living expenses. So that's why I said I like to tell London Met students from the United States to budget about $35 $35,000 US for their whole kind of kit and caboodle for the entire year, which might account for then their transit pass, their housing, their groceries, maybe 2 flights back and forth between the US. But it's going to range a little bit in terms of budgeting on your lifestyle, because some students might be living on a really frugal shoestring budget and can do really well in London. Groceries are cheaper there. There's a lot of free activities and museums and things for students to do. So you actually can live on a really good budget there. But some students decide, have budgeted money and decide they want to be popping off on trips to mainland Europe. And so the amount that you need is kind of based on that. And someone else asked kind of as a follow-up to that, in terms of the private rooms, bathrooms, what's the kind of price range on that? So yes, basically there's so many accommodation options, and some of them might be old Victorian buildings that are a bit charming but older and maybe a bit drafty in winter, but might be on a better budget than some of these new student accommodation that have the real IKEA-esque look, and they're really modern and have a gym built in and a movie room. But most of them all have front desks and 24/7 services and support services for students. And so the room you pick is really going to affect the price. So if you pick a room, you could find a room if you wanted with your own private bathroom and bedroom, but that's going to be most expensive. So most students tend to pick a single bedroom, but that has a shared bathroom space, shared kitchen space, living room space, especially the undergraduates. And then even there often is options in different pods. Sometimes it's like sharing that with 4 students or 6 students or 2 students, and the price point may be based on the location, how modern the building is, and the number of people that you're sharing those spaces with. So I know that's a bit of a vague answer, but I could send you a link that we have at London Met, or if you just Google London Met Accommodation, we have a whole webpage with all different models for undergraduate students to consider, and then they can see the price points on there and kind of make a choice based on their budget. And another thing to account for housing, okay, we still got 7 minutes, is that it's going to depend on if you're a student who decides they want to live there for the entire calendar year, or some students are able to sign leases with the student accommodation for just the academic year. So they might sign a lease from like September through June. And so, saving on those months in the summertime is going to hugely affect the amount of money you need to budget to go have this experience. And that's why I can always give a ballpark, but I can't give an exact number on what it's going to cost, other than I can tell you the exact number for our tuition. And with that said, because this comes up a lot, we do offer international student scholarships. So any student applying who is an international student can apply for our International Excellence Scholarship, which is £25,000 off tuition, so a bit over $3,000, and that's always a nice chunk off, say $16,000 to $18,000 US. So we again can give the information and work with students on the international scholarship opportunities as well. Let's see, any more questions people want to type into the chat box? Jadon, would you like to offer any insights? I know you actually were more recently well, I guess I was in the UK in January, what I'm talking about, but you've been over pretty recently as well. So do you want to offer any insight into what you got to see and do in London?
Yeah, absolutely. I think London is just one of my favorite cities. So the first time I actually went over there was to visit my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And it was just an amazing city with so many different people from all over the world. And I'm originally from New York. And so I'm always like, New York is the best city. New York is the best city. But London is absolutely tremendous. It's like this beautiful mix of city and nature. And there's an amazing, really efficient metro system. So many things for you to do. And Megan actually touched on it a little bit, the opportunities that you have to travel. It's so many opportunities to travel if you would like. I know obviously COVID has made things very difficult, but when everything kind of gets back into order, like you can literally get places with budget airlines for $20 or $30, and I'm not even exaggerating. And so it's really a transformative opportunity to study in the UK and study in London in particular. Megan even mentioned before, London was ranked the #1 city for international students for the last 2 years. And you wouldn't be alone in thinking London is amazing. And It's really amazing. It's funny coming from the Midwest. The winters are actually milder compared to the
Oh
U.S.
yeah,
In the
absolutely.
Chicagoland area, like Illinois, like you're not going to experience any polar vortexes or anything like that. The winters are mild and the summers are beautiful, and so you'll really get an opportunity to experience like the fullness of that UK experience. I really hope you all. I really hope to work with a lot of you. So.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jadon. And I was going to say to close up here, because we just have a few minutes, the next question that I get most from students applying from the United States is, does this translate back to the US? I want to come back and work in the US and live in the US and go to grad school in the US. And the answer is most of the time. You can get in touch with us to speak about the specific field of study or your career goals, but most degrees translate really well, especially if you're studying business, psychology, marketing, journalism, theater. The only ones that can get tricky are ones with very local, maybe state licensure. So for instance, if you're like, I definitely want to be a second grade teacher in Illinois, it's difficult to go study education in England because you're going to be certified there. Or some students who are looking to study, say, law at a graduate school level, it might not prepare them for the bar exam back in Illinois. So there is some specific areas that can get tricky, but you should always get in touch with us and we can discuss it. We have American students in loads of different programs. We can connect you with a current student, see where they went in their journey. Some of them might have stayed in the UK right now to do the post-study work visa. Some come right back to the US, but I found having a degree from the UK and coming back to the US, employers looked really favorably upon it on my resume. I used to work in graduate admissions at a US university, and we often got applicants for master's and PhD programs who had UK undergraduate degrees, and it was looked upon favorably as well. So again, we can talk to you about your field of study and career goals and how that translates. But I think if that's a barrier for you, know that there's actually a lot of American students who are studying over in the UK. So I think that about wraps up our time here. So I will stop my screen share, but please do get in touch with us if you have follow-up questions. We would love to work with you. Jadon will be your point person. And thank you for taking the time to learn about London Met tonight.
All right, thank you for joining us. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions being hosted, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions at IACAC.org. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording, as well as all of the other session recordings at IACAC.org. So thank you so much for attending, and have a good evening.